Yo hun! Over here! The day of the reunion had arrived. After checking in at the entrance and walking into the room, the first person to notice me was Keith, my old teammate from the tennis club. Who called out to me. As I waved and walked towards Keith, a group of our old tennis teammates, who had already arrived, were gathered in a circle. Hey, Johan! Long time no see, my old tennis buddies greeted me one after another. And we felt the excitement as we took turns putting our arms around each other's shoulders, laughing together. At the milestone age of 30, it was great to see my high school classmates again. As I looked around, I noticed a crowd of my classmates a little further ahead. I'll catch up with the tennis buddies first, then I'll join the classmates, I thought to myself. At that moment, it happened. Oh my, Johan, you're here too. A woman walked briskly into my line of sight and said that. It was Naomi, my ex-girlfriend, with her perfectly set hair and fancy makeup. Naomi and I had a bad breakup, which was a dark chapter in my life. I almost blurted out, ugh. But managed to hold it back just in time. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, Keith tried to smooth things over. Well, Naomi. You look more beautiful than ever. Keith said, probably just to be polite. However, Naomi took it as a compliment and started bragging. Thanks, Keith. Actually, I'm getting married. My fiancé is super rich. It's a classic Cinderella story. Naomi bragged with a mean smile on her face. Keith quickly replied, well, congratulations. Since Keith had spoken, I thought I didn't need to say anything, so I stayed silent. Then Naomi turned to me and said, Johan, say something too. Feeling annoyed, I reluctantly said, congratulations. Is he the guy with the penthouse you mentioned 5 years ago? I remembered when she had told me her boyfriend lived in a penthouse. Naomi proudly replied, I broke up with him right away. My current fiancé is even wealthier. I see. Since I had no jealousy or interest in Naomi's marriage, I could only respond that way. Naomi, apparently dissatisfied with my reaction, said, Ha, are you jealous that your ex is marrying rich? You still look poor in those plain clothes. I bet you're still living in that run-down apartment. It's pathetic for a 30-year-old. Meanwhile, I'll be living in a mansion on the Upper East Side. Right after Naomi finished boasting, she looked out towards the entrance through the large glass window. A luxury car just pulled up. Did my fiancé buy a new car without telling me? She wondered, staring intently at the car. Keith and I also looked out the window, and we saw a woman stepping out of the car and walking towards the entrance. Heading into the reunion room where we were. She's gorgeous. Who is she? Keith muttered. The woman looked around the room as if searching for someone. As I started to feel nervous, she noticed me and approached. Mr. Baxter, I'm here to pick you up. The beautiful woman said to me. She was Yvonne, a famous fashion model. The classmates in the room buzzed with excitement. I began to explain. Johan, you got a letter. It's an invitation to your high school reunion. My mom said when she called after a long time. My name is Johan. I'm 30 years old, single, and moved out of my parents' house a few years ago to live alone. Thanks for letting me know. I said to my mom, noting down the details about the date, location, and how to contact the organizer. The reunion was set for a weekend in 3 months. The location was an event space in a hotel near my high school. The organizer was Keith, who was the captain of our tennis club, so I could get in touch with someone from the tennis club to connect personally. I remember the time from over a decade ago, when I was around 17 years old. High school is often imagined as a time of sparkling youth, but in reality, it wasn't exactly like that, I thought again. The boys' tennis club, as the name suggests, was filled with nothing but sweaty memories of high school boys who had grown into their bodies. I think there was also a girls' tennis team, but we never practiced together, and I have no memory of any interaction. But, well, those 3 years were a mix of fun and unpleasant moments, just like for everyone else. Although we didn't achieve any remarkable results in the tennis tournaments, stopping by the convenience store on the way back from club activities, buying food and drinks with our limited allowances, and hanging out with friends on days off were good memories. It's not like there were no girls at all. I did date a girl who confessed to me when I was a senior student. But, honestly, I still don't know if that was a real romance, and since it left a bad taste, it's hard to call it a sweet memory. And I started thinking about Naomi. Naomi, a student from the class next door. We had never spoken until the summer of our senior year. But she started talking to me on the way back from the supplemental classes we both began attending during the summer break. You're Johan from class 3, right? I'm Naomi from class 2. Did you start coming to this class from the summer? I remember being surprised by the sudden conversation and responding awkwardly, oh, yeah. Can I walk home with you? She said, and started walking next to me, chatting as we walked the 10 minutes to the station. I didn't know what to talk about, but she kept the conversation going, and before I knew it, we were talking about various things. My parents are pushing me to go to Women's College, so I'm planning to take the entrance exam there. What about you, Johan? When she asked that, I replied, well, I'm aiming for K College, naming the prestigious college I was aspiring to at the time. Wow, that's amazing. You're so smart. You're always serious in the supplemental classes and you answer the questions correctly when the teacher calls on you. I really respect that. She said, complimenting me. It didn't feel bad to be praised by a girl, but looking back now, I realize I was just an inexperienced and naive high school boy. Encouraged by Naomi's proactive approach, she confessed to me at the end of summer, and we started dating. Since it was the summer of our senior year, and we were aiming for college entrance exams, I hesitated to start a relationship at that time. I wanted to focus on studying, so I told her that I wouldn't have time for dates. But she said, I won't interfere with your exam preparation. Let's date as a good study break for both of us. Please, she insisted. I didn't mind talking with Naomi, and half pushed into it, we started dating. At first, our relationship was easy, like talking on the phone briefly during breaks from studying or walking home together from the supplemental classes as usual. Hey, Johan. What are you doing now? A couple of months into our relationship, Naomi started calling me more frequently. When I was studying at home before bed, she would suddenly call me. As the exams approached and I was getting frustrated with not seeing my results improve, her calls began to interfere with my studies. I told her clearly, Naomi, we agreed not to interfere with each other's exam preparations. I've told you many times that this time at night is for studying. I can't talk now. But Naomi responded, but we're dating. It's normal to talk on the phone at night. While I prioritized studying and saw our relationship as something to fit into that schedule, Naomi seemed to think differently. It was different from what we initially agreed upon, and I was troubled. When I tried to discuss it with her, she got angry, and we ended up arguing. Do you not love me? She would say, crying on the phone, making it impossible for me to hang up, and my study time kept getting taken away. Not only was my study time reduced, but my sleep was also being compromised. With the entrance exams approaching, I was panicking. I'm sorry. Let's break up. I told her 4 months into our relationship. Of course, my reason was to focus on my exams. But she was adamant about not breaking up. I was at a loss. Was I in the wrong? I questioned myself. I thought I had been sincere with her. But I couldn't accept a life where I couldn't go to college because I prioritized our relationship over studying. There's no need to pass on the first try, she said, refusing to change her stance no matter how much I tried to talk to her. Feeling cornered, I resorted to a last-ditch effort. I stopped answering her calls. At first, I would let the phone ring and wait for the ringtone to stop, but eventually, I couldn't handle the stress and started turning off my phone. The next day, at school or supplemental classes, Naomi would confront me, saying, "It's terrible that you don't answer my calls." Even though I wanted to break up, she wouldn't agree, and I felt like I was in hell. Then Naomi finally started attacking me. She began spreading bad rumors about me among our school friends. Ignoring her calls was true, but she also made up lies. Johan is dating a student from another school while still with me. Naomi spread such false rumors to her friends. Not everyone believed it, but some girls who did ignored me at school events, making me feel bad. During this crucial exam period, Naomi's behavior messed with my mental state, and I failed to get into my first choice college. I heard through the grapevine that Naomi got into a less competitive women's college and went there, but by the time she graduated, We weren't speaking anymore. Most of my memories with her were terrible, and it definitely became a dark chapter in my life. That was a disaster. A youthful mistake. Well, it's good to experience such relationships when you're young so you can avoid them later. Think of it as a learning experience. My brother Mason told me. I hadn't shared details about her with him, but when he worried about me failing repeatedly on the entrance exams, I finally told him the whole story the spring after I graduated high school. Instead of crying with me, Mason laughed and said, "That's awful," which surprised me. Well, being 4 years older, with more life experience, my troubles probably seemed minor to him. However, even though I'm an adult, I still can't laugh about it. A dark chapter. It might be a funny story for others, but for me, it remains a painful memory. A few years later, I moved out of my parents' house at 25 and started living alone. I was busy with work back then, just commuting between my workplace and home, but something happened that reminded me of that dark chapter. Oh no. Is that Johan? One morning, while heading to the station from my apartment to go to work, I heard a familiar voice calling my name. Even though I was in a hurry, I turned around since someone called my name. Naomi? It was Naomi, looking more flashy than she did in high school. I felt a mix of not wanting to get involved with her again and a slight curiosity about her current situation. Did you just come out of that rundown apartment? Oh no, do you live there? Naomi said, looking up at me. Yeah. I replied, feeling annoyed by her remark. It looks like an old, rundown apartment. I always wondered who lived there, and I can't believe it's you, Johan. She said condescendingly. You always wondered? Do you live around here too? I didn't want to talk, but if she lived nearby, I needed to know to be cautious, so I asked. No. My boyfriend lives there, Naomi said, pointing at the condo across the station. Then, without me asking, she continued, his parents run a company, and they bought him the top floor of the building. I stay over most weekends and sometimes on weekdays, like today. Unlike you, he makes plenty of time for me and is rich and very kind. Okay, that sounds great. Well, I'm going to be late for work, so I'll go, I said, and ran to the station, leaving Naomi, who still looked like she wanted to say more, behind. She was bragging about her rich boyfriend, but since it was his parents who were wealthy, it didn't seem like much of a brag. Well, it doesn't matter now who Naomi is dating. As I got on the train, I reflected that when I said it sounds great, I wasn't being sarcastic but genuinely meant it. I was glad that her current boyfriend made time for her, unlike me. But Naomi's condescending attitude showed how much her personality had twisted, which was unfortunate. I didn't care about being looked down on, I was still myself. However, I thought it would be troublesome to run into her again at the station. The past with Naomi isn't quite a trauma, but meeting her brings back bad memories from those days. So I thought it was better for me to avoid her as much as possible. Fortunately, I didn't see her again, and I moved to another place 6 months later, thinking it was all settled. 5 years passed, and at 30, the memories of my dark past had faded even more. Then came the reunion invitation. Skipping the reunion because I didn't want to see Naomi felt like losing. I wanted to believe I didn't care that much anymore and wanted to see my old tennis teammates and classmates. I got Keith's contact info through our tennis alumni network and reached out to him. Long time no see. I'll be attending the reunion. I messaged Keith, who quickly replied, really? Looking forward to seeing you, Johan. Most of the tennis buddies are coming too. I was thrilled and couldn't wait for the day to come. Finally, the day of the reunion arrived. I had almost forgotten about Naomi and was excited to see my old friends as I headed to the venue. Johan! Over here! After checking in and entering the room, Keith was the first to notice me and called out. As I waved and walked over to Keith, a group of our tennis buddies who had already arrived were gathered in a circle. Hey, Johan! Long time no see, my old tennis friends greeted me one by one. And we felt the excitement as we took turns putting our arms around each other's shoulders, laughing together. It was great to see my high school classmates again at this milestone age of 30. As I looked around, I noticed a crowd of my classmates a little further ahead. Once I'm done catching up with the tennis buddies, I'll join the classmates, I thought to myself. At that moment, it happened. "Oh my, Johan, you are here too," a woman said as she walked briskly into my line of sight. It was Naomi, with her curled hair and fancy makeup. I almost blurted out, "Ugh," but managed to hold it back just in time. Sensing the awkwardness, Keith quickly intervened. Well, Naomi. You've become even more beautiful," Keith said, likely just being polite. But Naomi took it as a compliment and started bragging even more. "Thanks, Keith. Actually, I'm getting married. My fiancé is super rich. It's what you'd call a Cinderella story," Naomi bragged with a mean smile on her face. Keith promptly replied, "Congratulations." Since Keith had spoken, I thought I didn't need to say anything, but then Naomi said, "Johan, say something too." Feeling annoyed, I reluctantly said, "Congratulations. Is he the guy with the penthouse from 5 years ago?" Naomi replied smugly, "I broke up with him right away. My current fiancé is even wealthier." "Oh, I see." I had no jealousy or interest in Naomi's fiancé, so I could only respond that way. Naomi, seemingly dissatisfied with my reaction, said, "Ha, are you jealous that your ex is marrying rich? You still look poor in those plain clothes. I bet you're still living in that rundown apartment. It's pathetic for a 30-year-old. Meanwhile, I'll be living in a mansion in an upscale neighborhood." Right after boasting, Naomi looked out towards the entrance through the large glass window. A luxury car just pulled up. Did my fiancé buy a new car without telling me? She wondered, staring intently at the car. Keith and I also looked out the window, and we saw a woman stepping out of the car and walking towards the entrance, heading into the reunion room where we were. "She's gorgeous." "Who is she?" Keith muttered. The woman looked around the room as if searching for someone. As I started to feel nervous, she noticed me and approached. "Mr. Baxter, I'm here to pick you up," the beautiful woman said to me. It was Yvonne. "Yvonne, the reunion is just starting. Did I give you the wrong time?" I said to her. Yvonne replied, "What? Did I mess up?" and hurriedly checked her planner. "You're right. I wrote 4 p.m., but I came early by mistake," she said. I apologized to the panicked Yvonne. "I'm sorry, I should have double-checked as well. Sorry for the trouble." Seeing this interaction, Naomi turned pale and muttered, "No way." She then said to me, "Isn't that the famous fashion model Yvonne? Why is she here? And what does she mean by Mr. Baxter?" Keith exclaimed, "Oh wow. I thought she looked familiar. She's Yvonne the fashion model." "She's gorgeous," Keith said. Our classmates started to buzz and gathered around, curious and excited. I whispered to Yvonne, "Yvonne, could you please leave for now? I'm really sorry." Yvonne nodded yes and said quietly, "Okay. See you later," and left the venue. As soon as Yvonne left, a crowd of classmates surrounded me. It looked like Yvonne was safely escorted to her car by her assistant. "Hey, Johan. Explain. Who is Mr. Baxter? And what's your relationship with Yvonne?" Naomi demanded, leaning forward. For the sake of Keith and the curious classmates, I decided to explain. "Who's Mr. Baxter?" "Well, that's me," I said, handing out my business card. "The CEO of Flower Tears Inc. Isn't that the famous apparel company?" "Johan, you're the CEO." "No way." I didn't care if Naomi believed it or not and continued explaining. "Yvonne is the image model for our brand," I said. Keith asked, "I get that, but why did a model come to pick you up?" Naomi chimed in, "Yeah, why? Actually, Yvonne and I got married last month." "I wasn't hiding it," I said. "And today, we planned to go on a date after the reunion, so our driver was supposed to pick me up with Yvonne at the end. Yvonne just played along as my assistant for fun." The driver and Yvonne's manager were also in the car, I added. My classmates were buzzing, but Naomi was especially loud, shouting, "No way. Johan marrying Yvonne. That's impossible." I was exasperated by Naomi's disbelief. 5 years ago, you were living in that rundown apartment. It's weird. Naomi continued. Back then, the company was just getting started, so I was saving money. I only went home to sleep. So I chose a cheap apartment close to the station. Now, I bought a condo and live there with Yvonne. The company is doing well, I explained. Keith said, more than well, your company is hugely successful. You never appeared in the media, so no one knew it was you. I remember you studying business strategies after failing the college entrance exam, impressive. Yeah, I retook the exam and got into the top college in the country, T College, but I started my business while still in college. So I didn't attend much. I managed to graduate, though. I replied to Keith. Naomi, trying to regain control, said, so what? You must have gone to a low-ranked college. My boyfriend graduated from the prestigious S College. Keith immediately responded. Didn't you know? Johan went to T College, the toughest to get into. Naomi kept repeating, no way. No way. I couldn't understand why Naomi was so desperate to belittle me. If it satisfied her to think she was superior, that was fine, but facts are facts. Just then, another luxury car arrived at the entrance. This time, it wasn't my car, so I had no idea who it was. Seeing the car, Naomi exclaimed, that's my darling Cody's car. He's here to pick me up. She added, the reunion is still going, but it's boring here, so I'm leaving. Naomi started to head out of the room. The man who got out of the luxury car walked towards Naomi. Naomi. You told me to come here after 3 p.m., but it seems the reunion is still going on. Why did you call me here? Cody asked her. Because I wanted to introduce you to my classmates since we're getting married. Naomi replied confidently. Then Cody said, when did I say we're getting married? We met on a matchmaking site and discussed looking for serious relationships. But during our last date, I told you I needed to think about it. But we had 3 dates, and they were fun. I thought you accepted me as your future wife. Naomi argued. You really tend to get the wrong idea. That's exactly the problem. You only asked about my income, savings, and house. I answered patiently. But it made me uncomfortable. I won't see you again. I'm officially ending our relationship here, Cody said clearly. He said that in a strong tone, then turned around, got into his car, and drove away. Naomi was left standing there in shock. I was dumbfounded. Despite all her boasting about landing a wealthy partner, they weren't even dating. Naomi sat down on the spot, looking devastated. When Yvonne arrived at the venue, the classmates who had gathered out of curiosity had already dispersed, chatting with those they wanted to talk to. However, one classmate had been watching our interaction the entire time. Naomi, would you like to have a coffee with me sometime? Even today would be fine. I've always wanted to talk to you, said David, who was never the type to stand out, neither in school nor now. Quiet, serious, and unassuming, he wasn't the kind of guy who was popular with the girls. But we guys always liked him because he was genuinely a good guy. Naomi glared at David with teary eyes. But David was undeterred and insisted, how about it? To cheer you up, maybe after this? Keith and I quietly left the scene. I can't believe it. David making a move on Naomi. Keith said. I agreed, yeah, really. For a moment, I felt a strange uneasiness deep inside, but I shook it off, thinking it was just my imagination. And joined the group of former classmates from our class. A few days after that reunion. It was my mother's birthday, so I went home to see her. I was always too busy to go home, so I wanted to show up once in a while. Mason was also there. He works for a company, is married, and moved to another state a long time ago. As soon as he saw me, he asked, so, you had a class reunion, huh? Did you go? Was it fun? I realized that my mother had probably mentioned the reunion to him because the invitation was sent to her house. Yeah, I did. It was nice to see everyone again, I replied. But Mason kept grinning, looking like he had something to say. You dated that troublemaker back in high school, right? I remember. Did she show up? He asked eagerly. Reluctantly, I told him about how Naomi had been boasting about her wealthy partner, only for it to turn out not to be true. And how she seemed displeased to find out I was a company CEO. I expected Mason to laugh, but instead, he suddenly got serious and said, "I hope Naomi finds happiness." "Why would you say that?" I asked, puzzled. "I thought you'd laugh." "Maybe it's because I'm getting older," he said, with a mysterious expression. When I mentioned David making a move on Naomi, Mason said, "Wow. They seem like they'd make a great couple." I was even more confused. What was going through Mason's mind, I wondered, as he said, "You're an adult now, so I'm going to be blunt. You keep telling yourself that everything was Naomi's fault, but deep down, you regret just a little bit that you couldn't make her happy. She genuinely loved you and just wanted to be with you. Which is why she honestly expressed her feelings by saying, 'I want you to prioritize me over studying.' It was pure, bittersweet high school love. Both of you were stubborn and didn't admit your true feelings, which made things complicated. She boasted about dating someone better than you. And you pretended not to care about her anymore. Of course, there's no need to get back together now, it's just a clumsy, youthful mistake. A part of your past. But if someone else can make Naomi happy where you couldn't, you'd genuinely be happy for her. Go ahead. Ask yourself honestly." I listened to his words in silence, feeling both accepting and conflicted. However, I had to admit that his final statement about being genuinely happy if someone else could make Naomi happy was spot on. Mason often says things that seem presumptuous, but he tends to be right, which is both annoying and humbling. About a year later, I received a call from my mother. "There's a letter for you from someone written Naomi," she said as soon as I answered. I was so shocked that I dropped my phone. Quickly picking it up and making sure the call hadn't ended, I continued talking to my mother, who said she would forward the letter to my place. A few days later, I found Naomi's letter in my mailbox. With nervous hands, I opened it and read the following. "I couldn't find your contact information, so I sent this letter to your parents' house. Johan. I'm sorry for being selfish and interfering with your studies back in high school. And I'm truly sorry for making snide comments and looking down on you when we met again as adults. I was immature. I realize now, at this age, that my childish behavior was because I wanted your attention and wanted you to notice me. This letter isn't about wanting your attention now. I just wanted to apologize and make amends. When I heard that you had become the CEO of a major company and married a famous fashion model, I was jealous. But now, I find it embarrassing to care about such titles and to boast. I genuinely respect and support you now." After that reunion, I talked with David, and I gradually became attracted to his sincerity and kindness. We're now dating with the intention of getting married. I feel at peace in this relationship, and I owe it all to him. It was David who encouraged me to write this letter. He noticed that I was still hung up on you and suggested that I write it down. I'm sending you this letter for my own closure, and if it bothers you, please feel free to discard it without reading. But if you have read it, thank you. As I read the letter, I never once felt uncomfortable. The lingering uneasiness within me vanished completely. I closed the letter and whispered, "Thank you." That gratitude was not only for Naomi but also for David and Yvonne. I thought about writing a reply and picked up a pen, but then I put it down, realizing I couldn't quite express myself properly. Maybe someday, I'll receive news of David and Naomi's marriage. By then, I hope to have grown enough to say something meaningful. With my hand on my heart, I resolved to improve myself. He's just a high school graduate and super poor. Michael probably invited me to the singles party as a scapegoat just to make himself look better. Sure. He is usually competent at work and is undoubtedly a promising man who graduated from a prestigious university and works for a major corporation. But his mistake might have been flaunting it too much. After sending the drunken Michael home, I stayed behind with the 3 women. We were just talking, and we were wondering if you'd like to have another drink somewhere quieter? What? In the end, we moved to a quieter place and decided to continue drinking, no longer treating it as a singles party. My name is Jim Johnson. I work at a law firm and am 29 years old. The firm I work for is one of the largest in the city. We have a diverse group of professionals including lawyers, judicial scriveners, and administrative scriveners. And I'm a practicing lawyer as well as an associate director. Our firm is staffed with young and talented individuals. Let me share a bit about my childhood. Both of my parents were lawyers, and I was raised in London until I started elementary school. My parents were international lawyers. However, London was dangerous at the time, so my parents decided to send me to school in the US. As a child, I lived with my paternal grandparents in the US while my parents traveled between the US and London for their legal work. When I started elementary school in the US, I struggled to adjust since I had been in the UK all my life. Eventually, I made friends, but preferred to be a lone wolf. I didn't seek to join groups, which suited me just fine. I think it was around that time that I met Michael. Michael and I were classmates in elementary and middle school. He was always the leader type, always at the center of the group. We weren't exactly friends, but we weren't enemies either. We just went about our daily lives in our respective roles. In middle school, as the school district expanded, we got more classmates from different elementary schools. But neither Michael nor I changed our stance. I continued at my own pace, while Michael remained a standout. We went to different high schools, and we reconnected about 2 years ago. He suddenly called out to me at a restaurant, and at first, I didn't recognize him. "Hey, is that you, Jim?" It's me, Michael. We went to elementary and middle school together." "Oh. Michael, it's been a while." Honestly, I was a bit confused. Michael's charisma was still the same, but his appearance had changed significantly. We weren't particularly close back in school, but he never seemed this flashy. He still had a bright personality, but now he was dressed in obviously expensive branded suits and had an unnaturally perfect hairstyle. "Jim, what are you up to these days?" "I'm usually working at a law firm." "How about you?" "I work for a trading company." "They say I'm a rising star." "Wow, that's impressive." Michael is in the sales department at Young Trading Company, and according to him, he's highly regarded there. I thought it was typical of Michael to brag like that. He sees himself, and others see him, as a successful guy. "Jim, you graduated from high school, right?" "What?" "Well, I heard a rumor. You graduated from high school and then moved away." "Well, I did move." His house and my grandparents' house, where I lived until high school, were in the same district, so he must have heard about the move. It's so typical of him to assume I only graduated high school because of that. I decided to just let it slide. After graduating from high school, I moved to the UK to join my parents and enrolled at Oxford University. Given that I had few friends in the US, not many people knew this about me. I juggled both Oxford and law school, and upon graduation, I became a lawyer. With parents who were international lawyers, it was a natural path for me. Like my parents, I also became an international lawyer, worked in London for a few years, and then returned to the US when my current law firm offered me a position. The firm, although large, is relatively new. I joined as part of the founding team and was appointed deputy director, working alongside Mr. Anderson to expand our connections and build the firm to what it is today. As a comprehensive legal office where legal issues can be handled in one place, we have attracted business without much advertising. Although I'm often interviewed, I prefer staying out of the spotlight, so not many people know my face. That's why Michael doesn't know my background. Michael's change wasn't just in appearance. He continued talking to me after our chance encounter. Perfect timing. "Jim, are you free this Friday?" "Friday night?" "I think I am." "What's up?" "There's a drinking party, or rather a networking event." "Want to join?" "What kind of networking event?" "Well, to be honest, it's a singles party." "We need one more guy." "I'm not really interested." "Come on, don't say that." "It's at that Michelin-starred restaurant in the city that everyone's talking about." "It's a rare opportunity." Michael still thought I was just a high school graduate. I had been to that restaurant several times for client meetings, but I pretended not to know. "A singles party at such a famous restaurant? That's pretty fancy. Are you worried about the cost?" "Don't worry, I'll cover your share." "So just come." "I don't care about the singles party, but if it's just about having dinner, I guess I could join." "That's fine." "Great, I'll send you the details tomorrow. Here's my contact info." Michael handed me his contact information and left. I've never voluntarily joined a singles party. In a way, it might be a rare experience, just as Michael said. As a lawyer, I'm comfortable talking to people, but this might be a unique chance to enjoy a Michelin-starred dinner for free. So I decided to go with a light-hearted attitude. On Friday, I headed to the restaurant mentioned in Michael's message. After mentioning his name at the entrance, I was led to a private room. There, Michael and 3 women, who appeared to be office workers, were already seated. "Oh, you made it. This is my childhood friend, Jim. Nice to meet you. I'm Jim. Thank you for having me tonight. Nice to meet you. We work in reception." We exchanged polite greetings. All 3 women were elegant and beautiful. I was slightly curious about how Michael managed to arrange the singles party with these 3 women. With 3 women present, there were only Michael and I as the men. Just when I thought another man might join, Michael started the proceedings. "Alright, we're all here, so let's start." "Wait, aren't we missing someone?" The other guy cancelled last minute. "Let's just enjoy ourselves with this group." Thus, the singles party began. But it turned out to be a singles party for Michael, by Michael, and all about Michael. For a while, we chatted peacefully about general topics and our backgrounds, with Michael at the center. But as he got more drunk, he started to loosen up more. So, I graduated from the University of California's Department of Economics and I'm a rising star at Young Trading Company. Okay. Compared to me, he's just a high school graduate and super poor. It's amazing how different our lives turned out even though we grew up in similar environments. "Hey Michael, you're drinking too much." "Oh, I guess that was a sore spot for you. Sorry for bringing it up." "It's not that, it's just ruining the mood. Everyone's having fun, aren't they? Don't worry about it." Michael was completely absorbed in his own world. Despite his bragging about his background, the women seemed completely put off. Should I do something about this? But I was just here because Michael invited me for dinner. I didn't feel the need to put in any extra effort. I excused myself and headed to the restroom. As I washed my hands and took a moment, I noticed one of the women standing and looking at me. "Excuse me. Sorry about Michael. I didn't know he had such bad drinking habits." "We're fine. More importantly." "Yes? You're not really a high school graduate, are you?" "What?" I was taken aback. I hadn't shared my background or current job with them, and as far as they knew, I was the high school graduate Michael had described. "How did she know? You don't recognize me, do you? This is our first meeting, right?" "Actually, I know you. I'm Jessica, I work at the reception desk at your law firm." "No way. I recognized you as soon as you arrived." I thought Michael knew, too. But then he called you a high school graduate and super poor. And I couldn't figure out why. "Michael and I aren't close, I just came along for the ride today." "That makes sense. I was surprised to think you were friends with someone like Michael, but now I get it. It's understandable." I hadn't seen Michael in nearly 15 years, and I didn't graduate from a university in the US. I was raised by my grandparents in the US from elementary school through high school. So Michael probably assumed I was poor without my parents around. We went to different high schools and didn't keep in touch, so he had no way of knowing my career path. Michael likely invited me to the singles party thinking I would make him look better. Did he really want to be admired that much? Was he dressing in expensive brands to impress others? I started to feel a bit sorry for him for his character. Not wanting to leave the group hanging, Jessica and I returned to the singles party. Michael was still in high spirits. "Hey Jim, you're back. We're talking about going to a second place." "Really? Maybe we should call it a night." As I tried to convince a very drunk Michael, the women were whispering among themselves. The atmosphere was clearly bad, and they might be planning to leave. It would probably be best for everyone if they did. I continued to calm Michael down. In the end, I paid the bill and pushed Michael into a taxi. "Hey high school graduate. What do you think you're doing? I'm paying, let's go to the next place." "No, that's enough. Please take him home, I told the driver. I forcefully sent Michael home and stayed behind with the 3 women. Sorry for ruining the evening. Let's just call it a night. We were just talking, and we were wondering if you'd like to have another drink with us somewhere quieter? What? When I told them you were the amazing lawyer who's the deputy director at our firm, they wanted to talk more. You didn't have to say that. It's fine. Otherwise, it would be too unfair for you. In the end, we moved to a quieter place and decided to continue drinking, no longer treating it as a singles party. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Jim, and I work at a law firm. Come on, Jim, don't be so modest. You are a lawyer and the deputy director of your firm. I don't usually mention I'm a lawyer to new people because some people don't see me for who I am once they know. Jim, you went to Oxford University, right? Michael doesn't know that and thinks you're a high school graduate. Yeah, my parents worked in the UK, so it just happened naturally. The 2 women who came with Jessica seemed much more interested than they were at the restaurant. It turns out they were Jessica's college classmates. Fortunately, the women, including Jessica, didn't change their attitude towards me even after learning I was a lawyer. Jessica explained that the man who didn't show up was a mutual acquaintance and had organized the singles party. Why did Michael say those unfounded things about you being poor? I didn't say that. He just misunderstood. I'm not super rich, so I didn't bother correcting him. How humble can you be? Why would he think that? Maybe because I lived with my grandparents when we were classmates. So he assumed you were poor? That's such a narrow-minded view. We weren't that close, so it's understandable. The women, led by Jessica, seemed completely put off by Michael. Michael probably invited me to the singles party to make himself look better. I might be a high school graduate in terms of US education, and I'm not exceptionally wealthy. But he never listened to my story and misunderstood my background. He is undoubtedly competent and has a promising future, having graduated from a top university and working at a major corporation. However, his mistake was letting it get to his head. No matter how much luxury you surround yourself with, it means nothing if your character doesn't match. I don't know how others perceive me, but I would never use others to elevate myself. And I couldn't forgive him for implying my grandparents were poor. Although my parents worked overseas and frequently returned to check on me, it was my grandparents who raised me daily. My grandparents taught me not about becoming a lawyer but about being a good person. I studied hard, inspired by both my outstanding parents and my humble grandparents. Naturally, I wanted to become a lawyer like my parents and a person of integrity like my grandparents. When I was working as a junior lawyer in London, I was approached by Director Anderson, the director of my current firm. Despite being young, Director Anderson was a prominent lawyer in the US. Disillusioned with the old practices at his previous firm and determined to start a new one. Mr. Anderson, also an international lawyer, had connections with my parents. One day, he contacted me from the US with an offer. Jim, would you like to help me establish a law firm in the US? I knew of Director Anderson through my parents but was surprised by the offer to co-found a new firm. Why me? I used to work in the legal field in London, so I've heard about your excellence. Also, your parents, the Johnsons, helped me a lot. I've heard you worked with them. When I was still finding my way, your parents helped me grow into a competent lawyer in London. I see. They taught me how to be a person first, then a lawyer. Knowing that, I have no doubt you must be exceptional too. I think you're overestimating me. I'm just an ordinary person. That's exactly why I want you. Mr. Anderson said this and persistently persuaded me, even though I initially planned to continue working in London. After much deliberation, I decided to accept his offer. Although I had wanted to stay in London, I knew I could always return. I was genuinely happy and felt a sense of purpose being invited by someone who saw potential in me. Additionally, having my grandparents who watched over me until I graduated high school back in the US was a significant factor. Even though my grandparents weren't lawyers, that didn't matter. I considered them as my true parents, and my only concern while in London was leaving them behind in the US. So, I returned from London and helped establish the new firm. Mr. Anderson and I recruited and carefully selected young, talented professionals without compromising on quality. After the firm opened, it became a bit of news, and director Anderson, already well known, was often busy with media appearances. Due to my personality, I stayed out of the spotlight and focused on the background work. Thus, it wasn't surprising that Michael knew nothing about me. As I shared this with the women, time flew by. We should probably head home. It was great talking with you, Mr. Johnson. I had a lot of fun. Please, just call me Jim. Let's skip the formal titles. But you are the deputy director. I'll make sure to tell Michael. There's no need, I doubt I'll see him again. No, I need to set the record straight. As we parted ways, Jessica spoke to me. Mr. Johnson, would you like to have dinner again sometime? I felt a connection with Jessica, having met her coincidentally despite working at the same firm, and accepted her invitation with a smile. It was clear she didn't ask me out because of my title. We exchanged contact information and went our separate ways that night. A few days later, I received a call from Michael. Jim, you're a lawyer? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I said I worked at a law firm. I thought you were a janitor or something. I always thought you were just a high school graduate and super poor, raised by your grandparents. Well, I did live modestly. But it's all a lie. You're an Oxford graduate and a lawyer. I never lied. You just misunderstood. Unlike his confident demeanor when we reunited, Michael was now stumbling over his words. He must have learned the truth through Jessica. Whether I'm an Oxford graduate or a lawyer, I'm still just a classmate. This is why I usually don't talk much about my background. Some people see me differently once they know. Michael seemed completely intimidated by me now. Since then, he never invited me to another singles party. Around the same time Michael contacted me, Jessica also reached out. She wanted to discuss something over dinner, so we arranged to meet. I've been studying since last year. Studying? I want to become a lawyer. I started working at the firm to get closer to the legal field. I have a law degree but haven't passed the bar exam yet. I see. Why not work as a paralegal instead of a receptionist? Jessica explained that she was aiming to become a lawyer to repay her single mother who raised her alone. She pursued her dream by attending a state university with a scholarship but hadn't passed the bar exam yet. Although she wanted to work as a paralegal, she needed to support her mother. So she worked as a receptionist during the day and at a restaurant at night. I can talk to the firm about having you work as a paralegal. That's not why I brought this up. I was wondering if I should keep trying or if it's time to give up. I support you. To keep going, it's best to work as a paralegal and get first-hand experience. It's the quickest way. Are you sure? If given the chance, I'd love to try. Then let's arrange the transfer right away. I'll support you as much as I can. So, Jessica transitioned from being a receptionist to working as a paralegal under a lawyer. I also arranged to meet with Jessica once a week for what turned into study sessions. Jessica's skills and confidence grew rapidly, and she looked much more radiant than when we first met at the singles party. Then came the bar exam. Jessica gave it her all and passed with flying colors. She was no longer a receptionist or a paralegal. Wearing her lawyer's badge, Jessica was filled with pride and confidence. Watching her, I realized something. I had fallen in love with Jessica, who had worked so hard and achieved her dream. As a newly minted lawyer, Jessica decided to gain experience by working at another law firm. She would be busier now, and we might not see each other as often. I decided to confess my feelings to her. Jessica, congratulations. You really worked hard. Thank you. It's all thanks to you and everyone else. Jessica, I've liked you for a long time. Will you stay by my side from now on? Oh my. I've probably liked you since even before that. When we met by chance at that singles party, I was so surprised. I'm honored that you feel this way. Yes, let's be together. And so, Jessica and I started dating. Though our busy schedules meant we couldn't see each other often, we cherished the time we spent together. A year passed quickly, and Director Anderson had some news for me. Jim, I'm thinking of moving to London. What? I've been invited back by the firm I worked for in London. After careful consideration, I've decided to go. That's great. I wish you all the best. And I want you to take over this firm as the director. Do you think I'm up to the task? I've been watching you, and I know you can do it. You're the only one I trust with this. Thus, I became the director of the law firm the following month. Although I had always worked behind the scenes, I could no longer stay out of the spotlight as the director. I found myself increasingly appearing on TV and in magazines, leading to even busier days. Despite my hectic schedule, I decided to take a vacation to spend time with Jessica. Though we kept in touch regularly, seeing her after a long time made me realize how much she had grown. You're the director now. It feels like you're drifting away. I'm busier, but I haven't changed. Hey, I have a proposal. A proposal? How about becoming a family? Wait, are you? It's a proposal, yes. Wow. I'm so surprised, but I'm so happy. Yes, I'd love to. Jessica's face lit up like a blooming flower. When I placed the engagement ring on her left ring finger, she teared up a bit. You're making me laugh and cry at the same time. Of course. It's a flood of happiness. I then suggested that Jessica and her mother move in with me. Since her mother was her only family, it was the natural thing to do. After confirming if it was okay with me, Jessica started crying tears of joy. We decided to set up our new home close to my grandparents' house. This way, I could also keep an eye on my beloved grandparents. Upon announcing our engagement, my parents immediately planned to return to the US next weekend. We are organizing a family dinner, including Jessica's mother. I'm at the peak of happiness, but I know I couldn't have achieved this alone. My grandparents, parents, Mr. Anderson, Jessica, the staff from both the London and the US offices, all of them helped me get to where I am today. And yes, I should also thank Michael, who inadvertently brought Jessica and me together. I will keep these feelings in my heart and continue to work hard, never resting on my laurels. So, I heard you didn't graduate high school? We don't associate with people like you. Leave now. Kevin, one of my company's employees, was about to close a deal. Suddenly, Mr. Smith, the president of the client company, declared that he would not sign the contract. And the reason was absurd, it was that Kevin hadn't graduated high school. We're a large corporation with many subsidiaries. All our employees are college graduates, and many have even graduated from Ivy League schools. Do you think a company like ours would do business with a company that hires people like you? It's true that Kevin didn't graduate high school, which might lower his social value. So, Kevin couldn't argue back against Mr. Smith's words. However, this was a deal Kevin had meticulously prepared for. I couldn't forgive Mr. Smith for belittling him for something unrelated to the job itself. Understood. So, we'll cancel this $100 million contract. What? I knew how much effort Kevin had put into this deal. That's why I couldn't forgive Mr. Smith for trampling on his hard work so casually. We can't do business with a company that can't see beyond academic credentials. To make that clear, I told Mr. Smith my decision. I'm Hayden Johnson, 38 years old. I work for a company called Johnson Holdings. We handle logistics, supplying daily necessities and groceries to various companies. We have branches nationwide and our own distribution network. Because of this, Johnson Holdings can do business with a wide range of companies, big and small. Although I'm young, I am the president of this company. My father was the founding president of Johnson Holdings. At 70 years old, my father retired from his position. I inherited the company as the second president, learning about management from my father while working hard every day. Mr. Johnson. What's up? While I was working, a salesperson knocked and entered my office. When I was first appointed as the young president, I was nervous. But now I have built a trusting relationship with my employees and can manage the company smoothly. I was worried about being underestimated, but my youth turned out to be an advantage in management. It seems that my young age makes it easier for employees to approach me with concerns. Do you know a company called Smith Trading? Yeah, I know them. They also do wholesale business, right? We received a message from their sales manager, Taylor. They are interested in our products and services and want to discuss a potential deal. Is that so? That's great news. The employee then lowered their voice. And, well, they mentioned they have $100 million ready. $100 million? $100 million is a significant amount. Although I haven't heard the details yet, the deal would likely last for about a year if it goes through. Yes. I thought it would be best to report this to you rather than just handling it within the sales department. Thanks, I appreciate it. I nodded at the employee's words. If you assign this to Liam, the head of the sales department, I'll inform him myself. Right. I'll think about who to assign it to. I'll talk to Liam about the situation. Understood. Thank you. Although there are occasional rumors about Smith Trading, they haven't publicly caused any scandals. And $100 million is a tempting amount for Johnson Holdings. I discussed it with my father and decided on the employee to entrust this important deal to. Me? Are you serious? Kevin was so surprised by my decision that his eyes nearly popped out. Kevin is still an employee at 30, but he is exceptional and seen as highly promising by the management. Your sales record is outstanding. That's why I'd like you to handle this matter. But I'm just a regular employee, and I've never handled such a big deal before. Someone like Liam might be better suited for this. I've already discussed this with Liam. Even with his input, we concluded that you should take this on. I see. But my educational background is. In fact, Kevin didn't graduate from high school. His parents passed away from illness when he was young. Despite having no issues with his academic abilities or social skills, he had no choice but to start working right after graduating from middle school. He has been working since he was 15, gaining experience, but his lack of formal education made it hard to find stable employment. However, his drive and potential impressed me during his interview, so I decided to hire him. Kevin quickly acquired new skills and significantly improved his sales performance, exceeding my expectations. In an industry dominated by large corporations, his lack of a high school diploma stands out negatively. This means that people in the industry know about his background and sometimes make hurtful comments during business meetings. Your educational background doesn't matter. I know how capable you are. Handling a big deal is different and challenging. But I'll support you as much as I can. You can also rely on Liam. I reassured Kevin, who was hesitating. If this deal succeeds, I'll consider promoting you if you're interested. So, why not give it a shot? Alright, I'll do my best. Kevin seemed to draw strength from my trust and nodded confidently. His face was filled with determination. I heard Kevin is taking on a $100 million deal. I believe he can do it, but he's understandably nervous. That's what Emily said. She works in the accounting department. Known for her beauty, she is actually dating Kevin. Both are highly capable at work and attractive. They make a very fitting couple. So, when Emily and I talk, Kevin often comes up in our conversations. Sometimes he calls me to talk things through, Emily added. I see. I hope I'm not putting too much pressure on him, I replied. No, actually, your recognition has boosted his confidence. He's still insecure about his education, Emily said with a smile. Emily gave a wry smile as she talked about a side of Kevin that I had never seen before. Once he succeeds with this deal, he won't be belittled for his education anymore. If anyone mocks him for not graduating high school, he can proudly say, I've closed a $100 million deal. Have you? That's true. Not many people can claim they've handled a deal of that size. I hope this experience becomes a valuable asset for him, I agreed. Yes. I don't know much about sales, but I'll support Kevin as much as I can. I hope this helps ease his worries a bit, Emily said. With Emily supporting him, Kevin would be strong emotionally as well. Thinking about how well suited they were for each other, we finished our break and returned to our respective tasks. Kevin steadily prepared for the deal. He worked on the presentation and the documents needed for the meeting. I provided guidance and consulted my father when necessary to support Kevin. A week before the meeting, Kevin approached me. Mr. Johnson. Can I talk to you for a moment? Sure, what's up? Could you come with me for a bit? Kevin led me to the landing of the emergency stairs. He seemed to have something he didn't want others to hear. This is a bit embarrassing to ask, but I thought you might listen. Go ahead. Whatever it is, I'll listen and keep it confidential if you prefer. Feel free to talk. Well, if this deal succeeds, I plan to propose to Emily. I was surprised by this unexpected news. I had been watching their relationship progress, and it seemed Kevin was finally ready to take the next step. I see. Sorry for talking about something weird. But I didn't know who else to ask. Kevin was completely nervous, his face turning bright red. This kind of conversation is one of the perks of being a young president. Both my girlfriend and I are 30 years old. If this deal goes through, I've been told I'll get a promotion. So my salary and benefits will improve enough to support a family. That's why I think the timing is perfect. Oh, I think it's a good idea. She seems to care about you a lot. She might even be waiting for your proposal. Oh, well. Kevin's eyes widened at the objective statement. His innocent reaction was endearing. You two are a great match. When you do decide to get married, make sure to invite me to the wedding. It's too soon for that. I haven't even proposed to her yet. Well, I'm rooting for you. I'm sure she'll say yes. Do you think so? Hearing that from you gives me confidence. I'll do my best. Yeah. I also have to do my best to help you succeed. About a week later, the big day of the business meeting finally arrived. Since this was a major deal worth $100 million, I, as the president, also accompanied him. As he drove the company car towards Smith Trading, his face was tense. Kevin, you've worked hard to make this deal happen. You've prepared the documents and practiced your presentation thoroughly. Just show what you've been working on, and you'll be fine. Yes. It's your first time handling a deal of this scale, so it's natural to be nervous. But I'll be there to support you if needed. Just stay calm and do your best. Not only was the deal worth $100 million, but Kevin had also decided to propose to Emily if the deal was successful. Telling him not to be nervous was asking too much. Still, if he did as he practiced, the deal would surely succeed. I believed so. Eventually, we arrived at Smith Trading. I'm Kevin from Johnson Holdings. We're here for a meeting with Mr. Taylor from the sales department. We've been expecting you. Please proceed to the reception room on the 5th floor. We were guided by the receptionist and headed there. In the rising elevator, Kevin clutched his office bag tightly, which contained the documents and his tablet. We reached the reception room. After knocking, we entered to find Mr. Taylor already waiting. Hello. I'm Kevin from Johnson Holdings. I'm Hayden. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. No problem at all. I'm Taylor from Smith Trading. I've heard a lot about Johnson Holdings. Thank you for coming today. We exchanged business cards and sat down on the sofas facing each other. Then, we began the business meeting. Mr. Taylor, I understand your company is interested in our products. Yes. We'd like to utilize your products and extensive distribution network for our future operations. Understood. Let me first explain our distribution system. This is a significant deal. But I believe this will give you confidence in using our products and services. Thank you. Please go ahead. Kevin prepared the meticulously crafted documents. He began presenting the products and distribution services of Johnson Holdings. Wherever the copied documents were insufficient, he flexibly used the tablet to display additional materials. He answered Mr. Taylor's questions accurately and courteously. Mr. Taylor seemed positive about the deal, accepting Kevin's presentation favorably. As they negotiated the contract terms, the meeting approached its conclusion. If you're satisfied with these contract terms, please sign here. Yes. I'd like to proceed with the contract. Mr. Smith has entrusted me with this matter. Mr. Taylor took out his pen and was about to sign the contract. However, the door to the reception room suddenly burst open. An elderly man, who appeared to be over 60, entered without even knocking. Hold on. That contract is cancelled. Mr. Smith. Taylor exclaimed in shock. It seemed that the man who had rudely appeared was Mr. Smith, the president of Smith Trading. Ignoring Taylor, Mr. Smith strode over to us with large steps. He then spoke with a mocking smile. Kevin, right? Yes. Kevin, unexpectedly addressed by Mr. Smith, stiffened in surprise and stood up straight. I heard you didn't even finish high school. We don't deal with lowlifes. Leave now. What? Kevin's eyes widened at the unexpected reason for the rejection of the deal. I thought the name Kevin sounded familiar. You're well known in this industry for not having a high school diploma, aren't you? That's. The fact that Kevin hadn't graduated from high school was a whispered fact within the industry. I was well aware of it too. However, neither Kevin nor I had anticipated that his educational background would be pointed out in this business meeting. Our company is a large enterprise with many subsidiaries. All our employees are college graduates. And many are elite graduates from top universities. Do you think a company like ours would do business with one that employs someone who didn't finish high school? Kevin couldn't respond to Mr. Smith's words. He understood that in society, educational background is one of the measures that determine the value of a person. That's why he couldn't counter Mr. Smith's words. At that moment, I recalled some unsavory rumors about Smith Trading. And I realized those rumors stemmed from Mr. Smith. Indeed, Kevin hadn't finished high school. However, his dedication and skills in his job were on par with, if not better than, those of college graduates. And he had been working hard to ensure the success of this deal. It was unacceptable for Mr. Smith, who didn't know this, to dismiss him based on his educational background. Understood, then this $100 million contract is cancelled. What? Mr. Smith was surprised by my unexpected statement. It was natural for him to be shocked since I had entrusted this important deal to Kevin, a reliable employee, and supported him to ensure its success. Hearing me say it was cancelled must have been a shock. Mr. Smith laughed dismissively at me. Hey, what authority do you have to say that? Aren't you just a regular employee? Acting all high and mighty. Mr. Johnson. Please wait. This can't. Kevin also spoke in surprise at my words. I had told him I wanted this deal to succeed and entrusted him with it. So naturally, he was shocked to hear me say it was cancelled. Hearing Kevin's words, Mr. Smith seemed to realize something. Wait, Johnson? Mr. Smith, clearly out of place, spoke up, and Taylor hastily replied. Yes, Mr. Smith. He is Mr. Johnson, the president of Johnson Holdings. Because of my young appearance, Mr. Smith probably hadn't imagined I was the president. He blinked in surprise. At that moment, I confronted Mr. Smith with the consequence of underestimating Kevin. Unfortunately, we have other options for this deal. Kevin prepared materials that are very clear and can be easily adapted for those other options. A company with a president who belittles our employees because of their educational background is not one we can do business with. It's unfortunate. We wouldn't want to deal with a company that puts someone who didn't finish high school in charge of a $100 million deal. Looks like we're on the same page. Exactly. If this deal falls through, it will be a significant loss for your company, but good luck. Mr. Johnson is right, Mr. Smith. What are you saying? What? Taylor hurriedly spoke to Mr. Smith. Although I had heard about the financial situation of Smith Trading, he seemed to be fully aware of it. Because of your arrogant attitude, our company is losing clients. Haven't you noticed that more and more companies are cutting ties with us recently? I did notice that our deliveries have been fewer lately, but companies are dropping us because they don't like how you disrespect them. Taylor told Mr. Smith, who seemed oblivious to his own role in the situation. Is a degree really that important? Well, of course. Sure, our company's hiring criteria require a degree, so only college graduates work here. But what does that matter? He gave a convincing presentation. Losing business over something as trivial as educational background is a huge waste. But, even with Taylor's persuasion, Mr. Smith couldn't let go of his pride. However, Smith Trading's financial situation likely didn't allow for such vanity anymore. We contacted many companies, and only Johnson Holdings responded. If we don't seal this deal, our company is finished. Hearing Taylor's desperate plea, Mr. Smith finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. "Kevin, Mr. Johnson, please, we need this deal." Realizing his company's crisis, Mr. Smith's attitude changed dramatically. But the response to his words was already decided. "No, no matter what you say, we're canceling this contract." "What? We have $100 million ready. That's why we have other options for a $100 million deal. As I said, we cannot continue doing business with a company that disrespects our valued employees over trivial reasons like educational background. Goodbye." "Hey, Kevin. Mr. Johnson. Damn it." Mr. Smith shouted in frustration, but we didn't respond and left the room. Kevin followed behind me. Though the outcome was unexpected, I don't think it was wrong. Mr. Smith will soon realize the magnitude of what he's lost due to his actions. In the company car on the way back, Kevin spoke. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson." "Not at all. I'd heard rumors about Smith Trading, but I never thought Mr. Smith would be such a troublemaker. I'm sorry you had to go through that." "No, it's quite all right. Thanks to you, Mr. Johnson, things turned out for the better." Though he spoke politely, Kevin looked exhausted while driving. He had worked hard to make this deal a success. He never expected Mr. Smith to ruin everything. "Don't get depressed, Kevin. As I mentioned, we have other options." "What are those deals?" "Don't misunderstand, they weren't a backup for your failure. They were originally meant for another sales team member. But given the situation, I think it would be best for you to handle them. This way, the documents you've prepared won't go to waste." I then started to explain. "We have several similar deals lined up. Each may be less than $50 million, but together they'll exceed $100 million. It might be challenging. But are you up for it? Are you sure? Is it really okay for me to handle such important deals? You're bound to be promoted to a manager or director someday. That's why I want you to gain as much experience as possible. More importantly, I don't want you to end this on a note of failure because of Mr. Smith. So, what do you say?" Kevin thought for a moment. Then, with determination in his eyes, he answered. "Thank you. I'll do it. Please let me handle it." He truly is resilient. Despite Mr. Smith's harassment and the deal falling through, he remains undeterred and ready to take on new challenges. It's really Mr. Smith's loss to underestimate such a talented employee because he didn't have a degree. Feeling fortunate to have met someone like Kevin, I nodded at his words. And about a month later, "That was an excellent presentation. We'd like to proceed with the contract." "Thank you. I'll do my best to meet your expectations." Kevin successfully managed the multiple deals entrusted to him. The materials Kevin diligently prepared for the Smith Trading deal proved useful for all the other negotiations. All the companies were reputable and didn't care at all about Kevin's educational background. Kevin was celebrated at the company for successfully closing multiple deals worth over $100 million. "That's amazing, Kevin. Looks like Kevin is finally getting that promotion. Kevin is really good at his job. He's so impressive." "You're all exaggerating, but thank you." By successfully managing multiple deals, his achievements were recognized. Kevin was promoted to manager. I spoke with Kevin in the president's office. "Handling multiple deals must have been tough, but you did a great job. I look forward to your continued success." "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'll keep working hard to contribute to the company." For now, he is a manager, but I am sure Kevin will continue to rise through the ranks. I also considered his promotion favorably. After wrapping up the business discussion and handing him his promotion notice, I asked him something I had been curious about. "So, are you going to propose to Emily?" Although the Smith Trading deal didn't work out, you still achieved significant results. Now is the perfect opportunity." Kevin's face turned bright red, clearly caught off guard by my words. He looked around nervously for a while before finally answering in a faint voice. "I actually already have the ring ready. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss the opportunity after closing the deals." "I see. So you were well prepared, not just for the presentations. Mr. Johnson. Seeing Kevin's embarrassed expression, I laughed cheerfully. To encourage him, I said, "You'll be fine. Emily probably already knows what you're planning. It's better to act while the passion is still fresh." "Yes. I'll do my best." As we were having our pep talk, there was a knock on the door. Startled, I responded, "Come in." "Mr. Johnson." An employee rushed in, looking flustered. Then they explained the situation. "Kevin. Mr. Smith is here to see you. He's at the entrance, and the receptionist is dealing with him." "What?" "Let's go, Mr. Johnson." Kevin and I quickly headed to the entrance. Mr. Smith was pleading with the receptionist. "Please, let me speak with Mr. Johnson. Or Kevin. Our company won't survive otherwise." It seemed that what Taylor had mentioned was happening to their company. Over the past month, Kevin had closed multiple deals. Meanwhile, Smith Trading struggled to find business partners, and existing clients kept dropping them, pushing their business into deeper trouble. We approached the distressed receptionist. "Mr. Smith." "Oh, Mr. Johnson, Kevin." Mr. Smith approached us as if he had found his saviors. Who was it that mocked Kevin for not having a degree and ruined a critical deal? "I'll talk to him, please give us some privacy." "Yes." The receptionist headed back into the office. Clearly, witnessing a delicate conversation between two presidents would make her uncomfortable. Once the employee left, Mr. Smith apologized deeply. "I apologize for the other day. I deeply regret my misguided words to Kevin." Although his words and demeanor showed regret, it was hard to tell how genuine he was. It seemed he might be apologizing only because he had no choice but to try to save his company's financial situation. Regardless of his true feelings, I no longer had any intention of listening to him. Unfortunately, we've already found other business partners. We have no intention of resuming our dealings with Smith Trading. Please leave." As I coldly dismissed him, Mr. Smith persisted. "Please, don't say that. If you could name your price, we'll consider it as much as possible. Please reconsider doing business with us. Even so, we have no intention of doing business with you. Do you understand what you did to one of our valued employees?" "I am fully aware. That's why I'm asking. If he truly understood, he wouldn't be here now." I had seen Kevin's determined efforts to prepare for the negotiations despite being overwhelmed with anxiety. There was no way I would forgive Mr. Smith, who mocked Kevin for his lack of education and ruined the deal. I looked back at Kevin for confirmation. He met my gaze and slowly shook his head. It seemed he had no intention of forgiving Mr. Smith either. "Please leave." "No, please reconsider." Despite making it clear we weren't interested, Mr. Smith wouldn't back down. Just as I was wondering what to do, an unexpected person appeared. "Are you Mr. Smith?" "Emily." Hearing her voice, Kevin turned around. It was Emily. Seeing her, Mr. Smith's expression turned sour. "What is it?" "I'm talking to Mr. Johnson and Kevin right now." "Go back to your desk." "Excuse me, but I'm very angry about how you treated Kevin." "What? How dare you come here after belittling him?" Mr. Smith shrank under her angry glare. Despite being a woman, her words and stance carried immense power, and Mr. Smith was overwhelmed. We all fell silent. Emily glared at Mr. Smith and said, "We will not engage in any negotiations with you. Leave." Yikes. Intimidated by her fierce demeanor, Mr. Smith fled. After watching him flee in a panic, Kevin spoke. "That was amazing, Emily." Feeling embarrassed about being seen angry, Emily blushed and covered her cheeks with her hands. "It's a bit embarrassing. But I was so angry when I heard that your deal was rejected because of your educational background after you worked so hard." Despite the situation, she stood up for someone important to her without hesitation. I found her bravery admirable. And it seemed Kevin was touched by her feelings. "I was really about to lose hope, so I'm glad you stood up for me like that." "Really? Thank you. But I'm just glad your hard work wasn't wasted." Emily smiled with relief. The contract had once been cancelled by Mr. Smith. However, the efforts Kevin put in led to the success of many other deals, and Emily was undoubtedly as happy as he was. After all, she had supported him more than anyone else. "Emily," Kevin said, looking determined. "I think now is the time. There's something I want to ask you." "What is it?" Kevin had likely been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. He took out a beautifully sparkling ring from his pocket. Then, he took Emily's left hand and slipped the ring onto her ring finger. "I've always loved you, Emily. I planned to tell you once this deal was successful. Although the Smith trading deal fell through, I succeeded in all the other deals and got promoted to manager. I believe I can support you properly now. So, will you marry me?" Kevin's expression was filled with nervousness. He might have been more anxious than when he was during the Smith trading negotiations. It was natural since this was a moment that would significantly shape his future. Emily was surprised by the unexpected proposal. But soon, she smiled and responded, "Yes, I will." Time passed, and we heard that Smith Trading had gone bankrupt. They had insulted their business partners for lacking college degrees. Moreover, there were many stories within the industry about Mr. Smith looking down on his partners. No company would want to do business with such a firm. So it was only natural for Smith Trading to go under. Taylor, considering whether to find another job, was scouted by me. He was an excellent employee who understood the situation and could speak up even to a president. Letting someone as talented as Taylor go to waste would be a great loss. He happily accepted the offer and has been performing exceptionally well in the sales department of Johnson Holdings. Eventually, Kevin and Emily got married. And now, I am attending their wedding. Kevin, in his tuxedo, and Emily, in her white wedding dress, looked incredibly happy. Seeing them finally achieve happiness made me proud as their employer who supported them throughout. As their boss, I was asked to give a speech. About 6 months ago, Kevin successfully closed deals worth over $100 million in total. Many of you might already know about his outstanding achievements. However, there's another story related to this that I am aware of. Kevin, realizing what I was about to share, blushed with embarrassment. Actually, Kevin had confided in me that he planned to propose to Emily if the deal succeeded. Believing it was a decision worth making, I encouraged him. He took on the challenge not only to contribute significantly to Johnson Holdings but also to become someone worthy of Emily. And through his hard work, he successfully closed multiple deals. Everyone listened intently to the story of Kevin's efforts. Meanwhile, Emily was very worried about Kevin and supported him behind the scenes. I heard she often helped him when he was anxious. It was her emotional support that allowed Kevin to withstand the pressure and succeed in those deals. Many guests were unaware of Emily's efforts to support Kevin. As I spoke about her dedication, the guests listened attentively. That deal was essentially accomplished by both of them together. With such mutual care and support, I'm sure they'll build a happy family in the future. Congratulations on your marriage. The guests gave a resounding applause to my speech. They all celebrated the union of the two who truly cared for each other. Several years have passed since that joyous wedding. As a couple working within the same company, they continued to be supported by their colleagues. Emily, still working in accounting, was now on maternity leave, having been blessed with a child. Meanwhile, Kevin continued to excel as a manager and was now considered a candidate for the next department head. Seeing a happy family being built within my company brings me great joy as their president. I am now in my early 40s. Though still young as a president, I take pride in having helped make 2 of my employees happy.